Apple just handed everyone who was excited about the iPhone 18 Pro a number. That number is 36, not 3,600, not 360. 36 milliampere hours. The United States iPhone 18 Pro gains 36 milliampere hours over the iPhone 17 Pro. That's the battery upgrade. That's it. And here's the part I think every review is going to get completely wrong about what that actually means for you. So Supply Chain Leaker Digital Chat Station dropped the iPhone 18 Pro battery figures this week. And the internet did what the internet does, but panicked. But I want to actually break this down properly because there are three things happening here at the same time, and most coverage is only seeing one of them. Here's what we know, what we don't, and honestly, what you should actually care about. The United States iPhone 18 Pro is expected to feature a 4,288 milliampere hour battery, up from 4,252 milliampere hours on the iPhone 17 Pro. That represents an increase of less than 1%. For the United States model, that compares to 3,988 milliampere hours for the iPhone 17 Pro, which would be an extremely modest gain compared to last year's jump of 19% over the iPhone 16 Pro. Last year, 19%. This year, a gain of roughly 300 milliampere hours, or just over 7%. And these rumored gains would represent the smallest year-over-year battery improvement since the iPhone 12 Pro in 2020. We literally have to go back 6 years to find a worse jump. That's not a fun sentence to write about a phone that's going to cost over $1,000. And here's where I want to slow down, because the milliampere hour number, it's the least interesting part of this story. Think of it like a gas tank. A bigger tank means more range if the engine burns fuel at the same rate. Battery capacity tells you how big the tank is. It says nothing about how efficiently the engine burns the fuel. And the engine matters. The iPhone 18 Pro models are expected to benefit from the new A20 Pro chip, which will use TSMC's cutting-edge 2 nanometer process and should subsequently be more power efficient. The devices are also likely to get Apple's C2 modem, which could also bring a battery boost. So you've got a more efficient chip, you've got a more efficient modem. That combination can, in theory, can squeeze more real-world hours out of a smaller tank. Now, here's the caveat I'm going to give you that Apple's marketing team definitely won't. Chip efficiency gains don't always show up linearly in battery benchmarks. Software, display, power draw, and modem efficiency all play their own roles. Translation: Apple is going to tell you the battery is better. They might even be right, but they can't promise you how much better until actual testing happens in September, and anyone telling you otherwise right now is guessing. Okay, so here's the part that I think is actually the most interesting angle on this story, and I haven't seen a single outlet lead with it. The iPhone 18 Pro is expected to expand electronic SIM-only support to European markets for the first time, meaning buyers across the European Union who previously received physical SIM variants with the smaller cell will now automatically land on the larger 4,288 milliampere hour configuration. So if you're in Europe, this is actually a real upgrade, not a 36 milliampere hour upgrade, a meaningful one, because you've been getting the smaller battery this whole time. Apple removed the tray from United States iPhones, starting with the iPhone 14 lineup, whereas iPhones sold in China have continued to include one. Without the tray, Apple can pack a slightly larger battery into the available internal space, so the SIM tray takes up physical space. No tray, but bigger battery fits. And if Europe moves to electronic SIM with the iPhone 18 Pro, which these leaks suggest, millions of people in the European Union are going from the smaller battery to the larger one. That's not a footnote. That's kind of the whole story for a huge chunk of Apple's market. Now, I have to say this because it's the elephant in the room that some of you are already typing in the comments. Just like Samsung and Google, Apple is reluctant to follow the leading Chinese companies and opt for a battery closer to the 6,400 milliampere hour cell in the OnePlus 15 or the 6,800 milliampere hours in the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. And yes, that gap is real. It was in 2021 that Apple crossed the 4,000 milliampere hour mark with the iPhone 13 Pro Max. 5 years later, we're still seeing iPhones coming with a battery capacity of between 4,000 milliampere hours and 4,500 milliampere hours. 5 years. The iPhone 18 Pro will, on paper, have a battery that a mid-range Android phone had in 2022. Now look, raw milliampere hour comparisons between iOS and Android are not apples to apples. Pun intended. Apple's hardware-software integration is genuinely tighter. iOS is leaner. The A20 Pro on 2 nanometer should be meaningfully more efficient than anything available right now. Apple has total control over iPhone hardware and software, so it can ensure iOS is as lean and energy friendly as possible. That's not possible on Google-developed Android, since phones are made by countless companies all over the world. But the iPhone 17 Pro Max is currently in 10th place on best phone battery life rankings, when just a few years ago it was sitting in 3rd place. The efficiency advantage is real, but it's not infinite. And if Apple keeps shipping 36 milliampere hour bumps while OnePlus ships 7,300 milliampere hour batteries, at some point, efficiency alone stops winning the argument. Here's where it gets interesting, because everything I just said about the Pro mostly doesn't apply to the Pro Max. Digital Chat Station claimed in February that the iPhone 18 Pro Max battery capacity will move into the 5,000 milliampere hour range, around 5,000 milliampere hours for the China version, and 5,100 to 5,200 milliampere hours for international versions. That would be the largest battery Apple has ever put in an iPhone by a significant margin. The modest increase on the Pro contrasts sharply with the larger iPhone 18 Pro Max, which the same source previously indicated is testing with a battery capacity between approximately 5,100 milliampere hours and 5,200 milliampere hours. So Apple is clearly concentrating the big battery story in the Pro Max this year, which, whether intentional or not, is a pretty effective way to sell more Pro Max units. If battery life is the thing you care most about, and I mean most, above camera, above weight, above everything else, this leak is telling you something pretty clearly. The Pro Max is your phone this year. The standard Pro is betting everything on chip efficiency. So, here's where I land on this. The 36 milliampere hour number is real, and it's legitimately disappointing as a raw figure. Modest gains in battery capacity aren't necessarily indicative of a modest battery life improvement, and that's genuinely true. The A20 Pro on 2 nanometer could move the needle more than the milliampere hour number suggests. But I'm not going to tell you to be comfortable with this without seeing actual test data. Here's my honest read. If you're on an iPhone 15 Pro or older, the full package of improvements will likely feel meaningful. New chip, new modem, new camera system, better efficiency. The battery will probably be fine. If you're on an iPhone 17 Pro, this is not your upgrade year, not based on what we know right now. And if you're buying in Europe and moving to electronic SIM for the first time with this phone, you're actually getting more battery than you've ever had in a Pro iPhone. That's a real story that got buried under the disappointment headlines. The full picture here is more nuanced than Apple gave you 36 milliampere hours. It's just that nuanced doesn't trend on X. I'm curious, do you think Apple's chip efficiency argument holds up? Or is the milliampere hour gap against Android finally starting to matter? Let me know.